Hello and welcome to your August 2020 edition of Newsroom WolvHaven. Chloe has the headlines for you.
Two head honchos, principal staff officers, will talk you through the major server leadership changes and help make sense of it all. Survival World set to be reset as the Pangea Reset Bill passes in Parliament. Regenerating your town will soon cost you as the regeneration fees in Gardelia Bill also passes.
Thanks for that. Chloe will be back for more news in the second half of the show. But first, there were major changes to server leadership recently. CM Raiders has the story.
On the 14th of August, an announcement made by Silverwolf concerning the changes to the WolvHaven server's leadership and beyond was made. The announcement that talked of the beloved owner Silverwolf and how his entrance into university led him to passing on the roles of leadership within the server. In effect, as of August the 1st, two admins have been entrusted with carrying on Silverwolf's former roles. Titled as Principal Staff Officers, Admin Josh is now in charge of policy and community affairs and shall oversee the community affairs side of WolvHaven, such as addressing issues or acting as a mediator in conflicts, as well as now controlling WolvHaven's social media accounts. And admin Mopsy Studios was also placed in charge of operations, essentially overseeing the general administrative processes within the server, such as the processing of applications for non-staff ranks and general enforcement. Here with me now is Silverwolf. Hello, Silverwolf. Thank you for agreeing to appear on Newsnet today, despite your busy schedule. Could you explain to me why you decided to hand down the reins of leadership?
Because coming up soon, I guess I will not be having as much free time as I used to have. So as a result, I will no longer be able to oversee a lot of the operations and things that happen on the server, as well as like I would be able to if I had the time to do so. So that is why I decided to, hand down the leadership and the responsibilities to other people who I think are suited to carry out these tasks for me while I'm away.
That's unfortunately true. Could you explain to me why you chose Josh and Mopsy Studios as the principal staff officers, and maybe some more reasoning in depth?
Well, okay, so the original plan was to have Mopsy take over everything, but after looking at the way and listening to like concerns from various people and things like that, I decided to split up the role into two different roles. So Josh will mainly be looking over community matters in particular, because we've seen the way he has handled community disputes in general, and I think he's done a very, very good job at it. So he will be focusing more on the community side of things and ensuring that everything stays ensure that everybody continues to stay united as a community and organize community events and things like that. Meanwhile, Mopsy, I noticed that he is actually really good in ensuring that the operations continue as smoothly as possible. He's also done quite a lot of great work in like making our processes more efficient and things like that. So I think that's the reason why I wanted I let Joshi take over the role for the community side of things and Mopsy to take over things for the operation side of things. So this way we are able to leverage on the strengths on both individuals. So it actually helps. Hopefully, you'll produce a better outcome for the whole of WolvHaven in general.
Okay, I see. Thank you for explaining. So, is there anything you would like to say in general to the community who have expressed good luck for your studies?
I'd just like to thank everyone for their support so far throughout the years, and I hope WolvHaven will continue to prosper under the new leadership, and may things go well for everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Silverwolf, and best of luck to your studies in the
Thank
future from
you.
Newsnet.
Thank you.
In addition to the principal staff officers, Development Commission head Nixilis was given control of the server's physical and technical aspects, such as the management of plugins and the maintenance of the server. Both George and Mopsy Studios were detailed to now have the ability to make critical decisions for the server and will both be in charge of hiring new staff. Joining me now is Principal Staff Officer George, who will be dubbed by Grass Jelly. Hello, George, and thank you for spending your time to be interviewed by Newsnet. Congratulations on your promotion, and with that, I would like to ask a question. What exactly is your job as a Principal Staff Officer?
Good evening, and thank you for having me on the show. I personally oversee the community aspect of the server, while my fellow Principal Staff Officer, Mopsy Studios, handles the operations portion. As the head of the community while President Silverwolf is on academic leave, it's my duty to keep the players of the server happy and in line.
Ah, I see. So how has being a Principal Staff Officer been for you so far? And perhaps you could tell me as well what you plan to accomplish as a PSO?
Recently, our community has been a hotspot of toxicity and a source of frustration to some players. As such, I have worked closely with the members of the community in solving these issues, to which we have found solutions to, one of which is it's okay to not be okay campaign, which reinforces the government and staff stance on situations regarding player disputes, where, for example, if a player has an issue with another player, it would be completely okay for them to declare their grievances politely, so long as if another player has an issue with them, they can react in the same polite way. Hence, it's okay to not be okay.
That makes sense. Now, how do you personally feel about Silverwolf stepping down and giving you and Mopsy Studios the roles of leadership?
When I first heard from President Silverwolf that I were to become one of the new heads of WolvHaven, I was floored. I completely did not expect that to come, especially as an admin. I mean, I was already at the top, and I thought I couldn't even go higher. Then came the worries too. How would I be able to run the server, etc.? And especially as the youngest member of staff, I wondered how I would be able to command the respect of my peers. Then I thought, if the president were to appoint me to a spot, he would trust the public to respect me the same way they respected him.
Thank you now. Last question. Is there anything you would like to add for the community?
Firstly, thank you for joining WolvHaven, as this community is one that I could not find anywhere else, and without you, this community would not have even existed. Secondly, I would like to stress and reiterate to the public that toxic behavior is intolerable in WolvHaven, and I will personally see to the end of such acts to the detriment of our server. Lastly, I want to thank you all again for accepting me as one of your new PSOs. I trust that alongside Mopsy Studios, we will lead the server properly and well, and that we will make change for the better together.
Thank you to George and as well to Grass Jelly for dubbing. At the time of recording, Mopsy Studios was unavailable to respond to Newsnet's request for an interview.
The Pangea Reset Bill, proposed by United WolvHaven MP Vincent LUMC Fan, was passed by Parliament unanimously with 13 ayes. The bill aims to, quote, reset the current Pangea world, including the overworld and the netherworld, in order for players to be able to experience the new additions to Minecraft in relation to, quote, updates, as well as to add in the, quote, end world. Concretely, the bill adds provisions for a new survival world featuring blocks from the 1.15 update and a new netherworld once the server upgrades to 1.16. Notable changes include the provision of railway lines extending 2 kilometers each cardinal direction away from spawn, and commercial zones set up by the Minister for Finance, Trade and the Economy within the spawn area itself. A grace period of 4 months was also touched upon, with players able to request staff to copy over builds into lab, and storage facilities available for players to use in WolvHaven. There was a notable point of contention between independents and MPs alike, with notably Honest and Green Party MP number 21 criticizing the planned railway lines for, quote, taking away from the exploration aspect of the game, Independents Denami and Mirai 50 agreed with the HGPMP on this point, while Independent Little Doggy 2 suggested an exclusively path-based alternative to the planned railway system to link up settlements. United WolvHaven Minister for Home Affairs Grass Jelly defended the suggestion, stating that the planned paths and railways were envisioned as a means of, quote, counteracting the clustering seen in the current iteration of Pangaea. He stated that the current spawn area had been stripped bare of resources as new players tended to cluster around and settle within it as it was more convenient. He went on to say that a spawn exclusion zone would have the same effect in which players would cluster around the boundaries of the exclusion zone. He finally went on to state that the intention of the railway system was to encourage players to spread out. For more on the bill, we now have the bill's proposer, Vincent, a UMC fan, with us in the studio. Hi, Vincent. First of all, why was this bill proposed?
Well, it has been a while since Pangaea was updated, and the last major update was in 1.12, and the server is now in 1.15, so it is sensible to have a reset and to introduce the N-World.
What changes to the bill have been made since the idea was first proposed in a bill by TurboChan last term?
Turbo's version included a nether update, but we have decided to postpone because of the 1.16 update, which is coming soon. And we have added more details about how to manage the Pangaea spawn with rail lines and trails going out of it. Yeah.
What differences will there be between the current Pangaea world and the new one?
The new world will definitely have a better planned spawn and will include the 1.15 update, where sweet berries is quite a popular request for this update, actually.
How will the transition period between both worlds happen?
Players will be given a 4-month grace period to transfer their items into WolvHaven City, after which the world will be closed for regeneration, which may take up to 2 days. When the world is generated, there should be new strongholds for the N-World spawn where players can uncover themselves. But before the world is open, the new Pangaea spawn will be built first and world guarded, and then it will be safe to open.
Is there a concrete timeline laid out?
I wouldn't say there is a rigid timeline, but before anything is done, this proposal must be approved by Parliament, and then the 4-month grace period will begin. And once the world is generated, the spawn will be built in approximately the most 2 weeks, after which the world can be opened. So this is expected to be completed around January 2021. I suppose that's the earliest. The latest, I suppose, would be around March 2021. Yeah.
Thanks for that. Moving on now, the regeneration fees in Gardelia bill proposed by Prime Minister CM Raiders was passed by Parliament with 13 ayes and 1 nay. The bill aims to, quote, implement a charge on players who request for a removal of their Gardelian claim, and, quote, hence a regeneration of their claim. For more on the bill and why it was implemented, and the payment mechanism, we spoke to Prime Minister CM Raiders earlier this month. Hi CM Raiders, why did you propose this bill? Is this related to the recently high demand of regens?
That's correct. Recently, the Gardelia department has received an abundance of requests to regen or move claims, and the Gardelia department generally aims to preserve claims rather than regen them. And when we are unable to hold an adoption for the claim, for example, we are forced to clean up the claim ourselves. And players may not know this, but regenning claims can be a tedious and frustrating process depending on the claim. While this costs the Gardelia department members time and patience, this currently costs the player applying for the regen nothing at all. And the recent pileup of requests has really shown that the Gardelia department need a measure in place to discourage most regenerations and add a cooldown period to prevent players from moving claims every week. Hence, I created this bill for that purpose, which would not only charge players for regen, but give them an alternative option from the guard dep performing the regen ourselves.
How exactly does the charging mechanism work? Could you perhaps give us a concrete example?
The charging mechanism is a pretty simple system that accounts for all players and their level of disposable income. As stated in the bill, should the player request for the staff or the Gardelia department to regen their claim, a minimum charge of 5% of the claimant's current balance will be charged for every regen. After every half hour spent to regen the claim, an extra 0.5% will be added to the final charge until it is completed. So I also provided an example in the bill of how this would effectively work. So if the claim takes approximately 75 minutes to regen, that equates to 3 half hours, and hence the claimant would be charged 6%. And if that claimant had 1,000 in their balance, they would be charged $60 in the end. And should the claimant select the option of regenning the claim themselves, they will only be charged 5% of their balance.
The lock plugin information availability bill, proposed by Honest and Green Party MP number 21, was also passed by Parliament this month with 5 ayes and 8 abstentions. The bill aims to, quote, enable easier access to information about the LWC plugin via a page on the WolvHaven official website. In his opening speech, number 21 stated that, as in the Pangea world, there are currently no rules stipulating punishments against players who steal from unlocked chests or break into homes using unlocked doors. The /LWC lock plugin is essential in order to ensure, quote, personal safety. He stated that, quote, many players on the server do not, quote, know how to use the basic commands, thus making them vulnerable to theft. He also went on to state that even players who had basic knowledge of the plugin were generally unaware that hoppers could be used to transfer items from chest to chest, for example, or that they could add players to their chest via a password system. Independent, Starcubed, and Imperial Block strongly agreed with the bill, with the latter putting forward an idea for a, quote, demonstration area for plugins, similar to a, quote, tutorial. United WolvHaven Minister for Infrastructure and National Development Baymax 1020 also chimed in, agreeing with the fact that many players were unaware of plugin information and commands even if they were displayed on the website, which he called an, quote, excellent resource. He suggested that instead of adding additional signage at spawn, of which he noted there was already a, quote, significant amount, that a link to the website be provided instead. Independent Starcube disagreed, noting that, quote, people are generally lazy and that, quote, no matter how hard the website was promoted, players would still not use it. He suggested making the contents of the website viewable in-game instead, or a clickable hyperlink in-game. The minister replied, stating that members of staff have considered the idea of making video versions of some sections of the beginner guide, but however, noted that these were quite time-consuming and may not be, quote, worth their actual use. The left-hand traffic expressway exemption bill, proposed by United WolvHaven MP Vincent LUMC fan, was passed by Parliament unanimously with 14 ayes. The bill aims to, quote, provide a form of exception for expressways to be operated using left-hand traffic within a given range among a majority of Gardelia claims using left-hand traffic roads. Concretely, the bill enables exceptions to be granted for expressways built in areas where 70% or above of claims are left-hand traffic, or if the left-hand traffic claims overlap. However, Newsnet notes that the Gardelia Department of Staff will still have the final say when it comes to approving, denying, or modifying left-hand traffic expressway plans. The advertising bill, proposed by United WolvHaven Minister for Foreign Affairs Mindbuilder 1223, was passed unanimously by Parliament with 16 ayes. In his opening speech, the minister stated that ever since the Mentionable List Revision Act of 2018, staff have observed very little issue with players intentionally trying to break the advertising rules. He stated that following this success, the current United WolvHaven government believes that the, quote, harsh criteria and penalties associated with advertising are no longer necessary, and thus were relaxed in the proposed bill in order to, quote, allow for more liberal discussions of other servers. He also stated that the bill, quote, fully consolidates all aspects of advertising law into one piece of legislation, simplifying the task for both citizens and staff. The Gardelia Bricklayers Benefits Bill, proposed by independent Itzia Boyd Parkey, was rejected by Parliament unanimously with 15 nays. The bill aimed to, quote, establish a system to give bricklayers benefits for assisting on projects via a contracting system. The bill listed the conditions for a contracting system in which contractors could hire bricklayers to assist them in building. The contract regulations included payment limits for contracts depending on the type of project and payment timeframe. The bill also laid out the provision of bonuses for bricklayers in the case of exceptional work, and an additional senior bricklayer role which would be obtained after completing 5 projects. The bill was criticized by United WolvHaven Minister for Home Affairs Grazielli, who stated that the bill was simply, quote, unnecessary bureaucracy, and that players who currently need help with building simply ask their friends or neighbors to help them out. He also criticized the price limit, stating that players might get substandard work if the price limit is too low for a big project. Furthermore, the minister also took aim at the bonus for, quote, exceptional work, questioning why the contractor would be willing to pay twice as much and whether most would just regard it as shoddy in order to pay less. Other members of the United WolvHaven government criticized the bill, while independent Imperial Bloc stated that the bill, quote, blew his mind due to its complex nature. The motion debate time amendment motion, proposed by United WolvHaven Minister for Home Affairs Grazielli, was passed by Parliament unanimously with 16 ayes. The motion aims to, quote, decrease the amount of time given to debate motions to 1 week and allow motions to be, quote, able to be tabled weekly. The addition of an abstention vote option, motion proposed by United WolvHaven Minister for Education and Culture Matthew Tofu, was passed by Parliament unanimously with 17 ayes. The motion aims to, quote, add an abstention vote option and a subsequent Discord reaction for MPs to use when voting on bills, in order to, quote, increase transparency of parliamentary matters and, quote, enable WolvHaven citizens to, quote, distinguish between MPs who abstain from bills or who are simply absent. Still ahead on Newsroom WolvHaven, proposed General Pet Peeves bill slammed as, quote, selfish and rejected by Parliament. A plethora of parliamentary motions from WolvHaven Metro lines to housing discussed this month. Barred from adoption, controversy as a certain player bars members of the community from adopting his second claim. Stay with us here on Newsroom WolvHaven. Welcome back. The General Pet Peeves Bill, also known as GPPB, proposed by Independent Starcube, was rejected by Parliament with 12 nays and 2 abstentions. The bill proposed 3 changes in order to, quote, address a variety of current and ongoing issues within the existing server.
The first, the abolition of the Help Up ticket system and its replacement with the previous public Help Up channel. An alternative change was also proposed which would retain the ticketing system but create an inquiries channel for players with general inquiries for use.
The second proposed change would involve modifications to the TPA tax system. The bill proposed the reduction of the TPA tax to $1 WolvHaven dollar, which would equate to 5 minutes of gameplay time paid for by the Time is Money plugin. The bill alternatively proposed increasing the payment made to players every 30 minutes to $50 WolvHaven dollars, which the TPA tax remained unchanged. As well as proposing changes to the TPA tax rate, the bill also sought to charge architects and engineers in addition to citizens and PRs who already charge under the current system.
The third change proposed by the bill involved the conversion of Metro Line 8 in WolvHaven to a semi-automatic service.
The bill received flack from the Prime Minister, who stated on behalf of the staff team that staff members found the new Help ticket system much more convenient than the old one, as it, quote, allowed all queries and projects and whatnot to be organized into their own channel. Independent Courtsy also chimed in, saying that the ticket system was also better in ensuring players' privacy.
UWH MP and Minister for Education and Culture Matthew Tofu also slammed the bill, questioning whether the bill truly addresses, quote, a variety of current and ongoing issues within the existing server, as stated in the bill's description, or simply, quote, something that a particular person finds especially annoying, referring to the definition of the word pet peeve, which was included in the bill's name.
United WolvHaven MP and Minister for Home Affairs Grass Jelly also joined in the foray, stating that the bill was, quote, absolutely selfish in nature. He questioned whether the bill's proposer had realized that there was, quote, zero demand for the changes laid out in the bill with regards to the Help ticket system, noting that the current system worked better than the previous one.
Furthermore, Grass Jelly also noted that the TPA tax was put into place to discourage the use of teleportation, noting that WolvHaven has an extensive network of public infrastructure both in Gardelia and the WolvHaven world.
Finally, the Minister for Home Affairs concluded by saying that the bill achieves, quote, nothing for the WolvHaven community, and that the bill screamed, quote, privilege and entitlement, with the minister calling it the, quote, fix this for Starcube bill. He noted that this was confirmed by the fact that the bill's proposer himself noted that he could not write the bill in the first person, otherwise he would have done so.
President Silverwolf chimed in, asking the minister to tone down his rhetoric, and went on to state that the WolvHaven server was still a game, and asked players not to use strong words to prove a point.
The bill's proposer Starcube thereafter responded to the minister's comments, asking why people should be, quote, forced to spend their time writing infrastructure, such as Gardelia railways, and questioned what was, quote, wrong with using the railways as a, quote, catalyst for town development as well as a leisure riding railway.
The bill's proposer went on to note that he, quote, sees WolvHaven as an escape from real life and that he doesn't have the, quote, luxury of playing WolvHaven 24/7. He stated that he would, quote, ideally like to take the path of least resistance when he wants to go to a certain destination, and noted it was, quote, simply human nature.
He added on to this by saying that was why he wanted to convert Metro Line 8 to a semi-automatic service, as he preferred making metro services instantaneous by requesting a train rather than waiting for one. He went on to admit that the bill does, quote, come off as selfish, but noted that in the end they were still his ideas, and that he was, quote, open to change.
He went on to say that he would appreciate if members of the community call out why the ideas and the content itself were flawed, if they thought so, instead of, quote, calling out the motives and intentions behind the bill.
Following more criticism of the bill's content and ideas by MPs and independents such as Perfect Trains, Vincent LUMC-Fan, Something Wong, and Imperial Block, the bill's proposer stated that he would, quote, highly appreciate if players, quote, ignore the poor execution or the motives behind the bill, and, quote, focus on the content of the bill itself, noting that it would, quote, definitely help to have constructive criticism instead of destructive criticism.
Independent Something Wong fired back at the statement, pointing out that Imperial Block's statement was indeed focusing on the content of the bill.
United WolvHaven Minister for Finance, Trade and the Economy, Bang Max 1020, joined the conversation, stating that he personally was, quote, sort of in favor of TPA taxing architects. He noted that whilst they do lots of work for Fourth Haven and Fifth Haven, they will soon be paid for their jobs and also have access to other features such as homes, fly speed, and world edit limit changes.
He noted that it was, quote, unfortunate that there are inactive architects who enjoy these perks but have yet to contribute to either world, and that whilst it was, quote, nearly impossible to force architects to build in projects, and that it would most likely be opposed, he believed that changing permissions should be considered in order to, quote, make the player experience more balanced.
He noted that this could be done by reducing the number of homes architects could have, or alternatively, increasing the number of homes ranks below architects could create.
The Housing Act motion proposed by independent It's Your Boy Parky was discussed in Parliament this month.
In his opening speech, It's Your Boy Parky proposed making private housing prices more visible. He stated that some players may be rich enough to buy from the private sector, but aren't aware of it due to prices not being shown publicly.
He proposed that displaying property prices outside residential properties be mandatory and the signage also be used to show if a particular residential property is currently occupied.
President Silverwolf noted that the proposal was more suited to a bill rather than a motion, while United WolvHaven MPs, Vincent LUMC-Fan, Prime Minister CM Raiders, and Minister for Finance, Trade and the Economy, Baymax 1020, commented on the motion, stating that it should be up to the private developers to display prices publicly, and that additional workload should not be imposed on staff.
The motion was not voted on.
And now, starting off with a wave of parliamentary motions regarding the WolvHaven Metro. The WolvHaven Metro service change motion, proposed by independent Pretzel 33, was withdrawn.
The motion proposed the rearrangement of services, with notably Metro Line 6 being rerouted to Bella Vista and made a manual line.
The bill was withdrawn following MPs questioning the usefulness of changes proposed and explaining to the bill's proposer that the main focus was now on Fifth Haven, the upcoming city world.
Similarly, the bringing the 6 to Bella Vista motion was withdrawn by the bill's proposer, independent It's Your Boy Parky, following the withdrawal of the previously mentioned WolvHaven Metro service change motion.
The self-explanatory motion also proposed rerouting Metro Line 6 to Bella Vista.
Continuing on with WolvHaven Metro-related motions, the M10 regular service motion proposed by independent Pretzel 33 was discussed in Parliament this month.
The motion proposed adding an additional station on Metro Line 10 at Renaissance and possibly more.
The bill was shot down by MPs and independents from both sides of the aisle, with many saying it was ridiculous to add more stops to an express line. In addition, MPs and independents also added that Fourth Haven development was coming to an end.
In yet another motion regarding the WolvHaven Metro, the 3 extension to City Hall motion was discussed in Parliament this month.
The bill proposed by independent It's Your Boy Parky proposed extending M3 south to City Hall in order for it to serve as an express variant to M2.
Independents and MPs alike stated that work on Fourth Haven was done, and as the priority has now shifted to Fifth Haven, and that motions regarding extensions to the WolvHaven Metro were no longer relevant.
The 5 and 7 semi-automation motion proposed by independent It's Your Boy Parky was also discussed in Parliament this month.
In his opening speech, It's Your Boy Parky stated that the 5 and 7 are one of the, quote, most important lines, and that semi-automation would, quote, reduce congestion on lines 2 and 8.
MPs and independents alike commented on the proposal, stating that the semi-automation would reduce job opportunities for drivers and added capacity would not be necessary as metro trains were practically never full.
The manual line semi-automation motion proposed by independent Imperial Bloc was withdrawn this month.
In his opening speech, Imperial Bloc stated that driving trains could be more or less difficult depending on how far a player lived from the service location in Singapore. Therefore, Imperial Bloc proposed that every manual line be converted to semi-automatic operation or fully automatic operation with an optional manual driver mode.
United WolvHaven Minister for Home Affairs, Grass Jelly, slammed the motion, calling it, quote, selfish, and a case of, quote, if I can't have it, nobody can, highlighting the bill's proposers' past comments on the server.
Imperial Bloc countered by stating that trains would still be able to be driven manually, however drivers may choose to enable automatic operation at any time if, quote, difficulties are found.
CFDMP, Perfect Trains, and Independent Kangaroo 567 questioned whether this would enable drivers to be paid while enabling their trains to run on automatic mode.
Imperial Bloc thereafter withdrew the motion, citing the, quote, numerous problems that have been found by other members during the debate.
Moving on now to some other news. While transfers and adoptions of Gardelia claims aren't unusual, the adoption of POTUS locating at CC-N3 caused a stir.
Former claim owner Delfino88 decided to give up his claim following the Gardelia department imposing a DMZ in order to prevent him from expanding unevenly towards neighboring claims.
However, in a first in Gardelian history, he decided to bar 8 players from being able to claim the Roman city. Players included Baymax 1020, Bok Bok Obama, Boom Doom, Captain Slow, Grass Jelly, Mopsy Studios, Oscar the Oscar, and Vincent LUMC fan. POTUS was ultimately transferred to Hinwapun.
Still in Gardelia, the city of Cranbrook in the north of Gardelia held its August 2020 general election this month.
Cranbrook citizens were able to cast their ballots for the President and the Supreme People's Assembly. In the presidential contest, Cranbrook People's Party candidate Baymax 1020 was elected with a significant lead over the Smart Train Dudes candidate Captain Slow, with 11 and 4 votes each respectively.
Over in the Supreme People's Assembly, the ruling CCP received 73.33% of the vote and 7 seats, the STD 20% with 2 seats, and the Social Democratic Party of Cranbrook, led by Gravity Duke, garnered just 6.66% of the vote and 1 seat. The Smart Train Dudes Party forfeited their seats and thus gave the CCP a supermajority with 9 out of 10 seats.
On the 14th of August, Principal Staff Officer Admin George made an announcement centered on the community.
George, in his announcement, spoke of welcomeness of all players in the WolvHaven community and reminded players to be respectful to one another. In the same announcement, a detailed post explaining the general etiquette and behavior within the WolvHaven community, as well as how players can keep themselves safe.
Many customs and mannerisms were laid out, such as maintaining a respectful, open-minded, and considerate behavior when interacting with other players. A rundown on behavior that was not acceptable or unfavorable, and how to deal with such instances was also detailed on the page.
Newsnet highly encourages not only newer players, but all players to read the post for the continued improvement of attitudes in the WolvHaven community.
And that's it for this edition of Newsroom WolvHaven. Thanks for watching.
We'll see you next month.